Hello, everybody. Welcome to the music rating, ranking, and reviewing podcast we like to call Music Meltdown, in which we talk about an artist's discography, songs, miscellaneous. Yeah. Today we're going into the mid to late 80s up to current day after a little bit of a breakup in the mid 90s, talking about a bit of a college rock band that never really got a ton of due, but there is some kind of like a cult group to a certain degree. Going to be Throwing Muses, led by Kristen Hirsch, and for a little bit of their run, Tanya Donley, who would later go on to form the group Belly. Kind of hard to describe them. Very sort of that college rock scene, not quite Sonic Youth, not quite REM, kind of like in the middle, a bit of the chaotic sense that you get from other groups, but you still have a bit of melodicism and sort of really like hooky songs. Overall, though, 10 records, bit of an interesting group to discuss. That being said, though, Rich, what was your familiarity with Throwing Muses?
All right. Thanks for having me on again. Um, I was at Ohio Wesleyan University briefly in 1989 and got to know some cool people there. There were a couple of super cool and super hot girls that were into the Muses, and that influenced me to get into them. A few years later, I picked up my first Muses album right around when it came out, and that was the Real Ramona. I was a big fan from that point on, and they're one of my favorite bands, if not top 10, top 20.
Well, that's a little bit of enjoyability there. Patrick, what's your familiarity with Throwing Muses?
Well, I'd say like Rich, the first songs I heard from the Throwing Muses were on college radio, and it was Not Too Soon and Counting Backwards from the Real Ramona. And loved those songs, loved both of them, and was intrigued enough to go search out the CD. And really, I mean, it hit me really hard the first time I listened to the Real Ramona. I love that album. Um, don't want to provide any spoilers here, but uh, from there I shot off forward and pretty much kept up with them up till Limbo. So for the self-titled, the one from 2003 going forward, I had not heard those albums, but I did go backwards from the Real Ramona and listen to Hunkpapa and the first self-titled, their debut album
Mhm.
as well, and House Tornado. So uh, I was up, familiar up through Limbo basically with them, and love them. I think Kristen Hirsch is very unique in terms of indie rock, and they've got so many different influences: country, indie rock. They've got a harder edge to them. They've also got grunge influence. You can hear it in their later work. So, yeah, and I love Throwing Muses. I love the band. Fantastic.
Yep. And my familiarity with them goes back to Patrick's CD copy of The Real Ramona. As I posted those videos before, Patrick was selling off a bunch of CDs. I wanted to be nice and pick up as much as I can, just because probably for a good price, and also to get them off of his hands. So I looked around. There were some artists I wasn't directly familiar with, one of which being Throwing Muses. Sort of looked at them on Rate Your Music, sort of saw what the more popular records were. Seemed like there were a couple in your collection, so I listened to The Real Ramona. Through that, I picked up the entire 90s discography from you. Thank you once again. And with that being said, I like them. However, I had been very weary to listen to more material because I really loved one record in particular. Some of that may have been founded, some of it may have not. We shall see as we get into this. 10 records. That being said, Patrick, do you want to kick this off with your least favorite Throwing Muses record?
Yes, I'll kick this off, and it's going to be their most recent album, Sun Racket, from 2020. Um, It's not a bad listen, but there's a couple of outstanding problems, I think, with it, or at least challenges that I have with it. One, I don't think the songwriting, there's not a really a standout or memorable track on this album. But two, Kristen's voice is pretty much rugged, probably shot. And so that makes it, she's not as expressive as she once was. And you know, age affects us all. So uh I think that they're, you know, leaning on their older sound, or what I consider to be quite iconic throwing muses songs. They've definitely had a signature sound starting from their debut, and I think this is sort of like a call back to that, but with less energy, with you know, Kristen's voice worse for the wear, unfortunately. And I just don't think the songs are that strong on this album. I do like Dark Blue. I do like the leadoff track to it. But after that, it just, we've got this aquatic theme going on that is present in her and other albums here throughout Throwing Muses discography, and it's pretty strong here. In particular, you got Dark Blue and Bywater and Maria Laguna, and it just, you know, Bo Diddley Bridge. But none of these songs are really just remarkable in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, I find her solo stuff, even her recent solo stuff, to be more interesting than these songs. So I don't know if they're, you know, if they made a different list for her when she was going, when she was using Throwing Muses instead of her solo work. But I wish I liked this album better. It's 2.5 stars for me, um, but it will improve. Um, but yeah, this is at the bottom of my list. I do Dark Blue stands out. Um, Frosting I sort of like, but it's just not. After giving it a couple of listens, it just, I don't know. I struggle with this album, unfortunately.
If I could interject real quick, I'll get there soon. But did you actually hear her solo record from just last year by chance? Because
No,
I
I have
heard
not
it.
heard that.
I heard it. I didn't love it, but that was
Mhm.
mainly just due to, well, bluntly, her voice being absolutely shot at this point. So
Yep.
just curious on that front.
See, I'm much more forgiving of her older voice. I think it has a lot of character.
Mhm.
And
It certainly doesn't lack character. I'll give it that.
all
It's
right.
not. I doesn't lack character. It's just not. She was so expressive, especially when she was younger, right? With her voice, I think that was her crowning achievement with her vocals, was how expressive and how emotional she could really, how
I
emotional she
don't
could come
think she
across in her songs.
lacks I don't think she lacks in expression, but I so are you saying that she can't convey emotions and stuff as well because her voice isn't as
Mm,
good?
she doesn't have that range, and not necessarily vocal range in terms of octaves, but she doesn't have that range of force that she had when she was younger, uh, you know, in her vocals, and that's just from time, basically.
Yeah.
She used to wail.
Yeah.
She could really wail. Very impressive. Anyway,
Okay, so my number 10 is House Tornado from 1988, their second album. This one pretty much it's pretty much a continuation of what they did on the debut, but less successful. The magic spark they had is largely absent here. I don't find most of these songs to be very memorable or catchy. The lyrics are laborious, wordy, and nonsensical. I'm usually okay with nonsensical songs, but these are particularly obtuse. We get more songs with tempo changes, along with lots of circular guitar patterns and some train beats. While they sounded off kilter on the debut, here they more often just sound awkward. There is some good stuff here, though. Juno is actually catchy with some great drums. The Tanya Donnelly tune, Giant, is playful, while the closer, Walking in the Dark, is excellent despite some awkward opening lines. I love the strident piano mixed with the acoustic guitars. I know House Tornado has its fans, but this album never clicked much with me. However, I listened to the album repeatedly in preparation for this video, and my appreciation for it grew. So I'm up to 3.5 stars. It's good.
Whoa. Wow.
I'll say
Okay.
this.
That's quite the bottom. 3.5 stars. That's impressive. Wow.
I share similar sentiments, but that at the bottom is a bit obscene. But we'll get there in time.
I know that album has its fans.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning there was one that you weren't crazy about, and I was expecting you to go with a different album. So that's kind of why I was caught off guard there a bit. I'm gonna have to concur with Patrick, though. The worst for me is definitely Sun Rocket. And yeah, Hirsch's vocals are just rough here. She was never a conventionally great singer, but just the rasp and sort of like that sort of underlying sense of her vocals have just completely overtaken herself, and it's just not great. I'd say I fall kind of in between you both. She can still definitely convey emotion. She's doing like these weird sort of like yarls or whatever you want to call it that she was doing all the way in the past, those weird sort of like yells and whatnot. The issue is they just sort of sound like dog shit now. And on top of that, the songs are just really uneventful here. The band are far from their peak as well, which is something you can consistently say is the rhythm section, especially the bass lines to this band are just always going crazy. The drum work as well is always frantic. It has this great energy to it, but on here it's just sort of mellowed out and lackadaisical. All in all, this just isn't a great record in my opinion. I have it at 2.5 stars. It's closer to two than it is three, though. I'll say that much. So the bottom, Sun Racket, 2.5 stars. Not great.
Kristen, if you're watching, I'm sorry.
I'm
All right, my turn. Next in line here, I have Purgatory Paradise. Now, this is a stronger album, I think, but it's way too long. It's got 32 tracks. It's 67 minutes. And if this had been cut down to around 12 tracks, this would have gone up at least a star and a half or 2 stars for me. So it's a shame because there are some really, really, really good tracks that I enjoy off here. Sunray Venus, I think, is just really fantastic, catchy as heck. Has some signature characteristics of the Throwing Muses. I like Morning Birds. I like Slipper Shell a lot. I like Milan an awful lot. That's a wonderful song. This album, I really am torn over because it's just a shame. There's just too many subpar tracks on this album for me to go above 3 stars. I do give it 3 stars. The songs I really like, I really like. If this was a single album, this would have been so much better. And I don't know if the label forced Kristen into this, or if this was just she just had these songs cached and was just wanting to get them out. But some editing here would have helped tremendously. Otherwise, you know, you got Opiates, another really, really good song. I just, I could name about 10 to 12 really good songs, and it just would have made a great single album and it's been so much shorter, half the time at least, if not more. It's a shame. But that's what streaming's for, and it's you can cut those songs and put them in put them into your own personal playlist, and it then becomes very listenable and an enjoyment. Um, you can hear her voice starting to go here, but I still think it's pretty strong. I still think she's got a lot of punch, and some of these songs rock. And her guitar playing, I have to tell you, I think Kristen is such an underrated guitarist. As a rhythm guitarist, she's fantastic. And her, when she does play lead lines, when she does have her 4 bar or 8 bar solos, she's fantastic. Very inventive, very creative. I really like Kristen's guitar as much as I like her singing and songwriting. I think she's, in that way, she's a triple threat. And I wish I could go higher on this album, but I do give it 3. I do think it's for the good songs alone, it's worth a listen. Um, but it's just too long, too big, too bloated, unfortunately. That's its big weakness anyway.
Yeah, I see the argument for whittling it down to 12 of the best songs, but it's a big sprawling kind of affair. It's completely different. I appreciate that it's has this character, that's off the beaten path. So I'm kind of glad they did something different.
Mhm.
Anyway, Purgatory Paradise is my number 9 as well. This is their 9th album. It's from 2013. Very unusual one. It was originally released with a book that contained things like lyrics and art. Uh, Patrick's right, there are 32 tracks here, but the runtime is only a little over an hour because about half of what's here is only around 1 minute in length.
Mhm.
So it feels like a collection of song fragments, a lot of which just seems like unfinished song ideas. Although some of them do feel like complete short songs. The track Smoky Hands 2 is only 28 seconds long and sounds like the beginning of a song that just doesn't happen. Um, the album rocks out in spurts, but overall it feels more intimate with an appealing acoustic guitar sound. A fair amount of these tunes are just mid, especially the short songs, but they don't last long enough to be too consequential. And the whole thing comes together to be a rather dark and interesting listen. Morning Birds 1 starts off rocking, but then gets mellow, while
Mhm.
Slipper Shell does just the opposite. I find the scrapbook quality of Purgatory Paradise to be appealing, and I found it to be an enjoyable listen. Um, Kristen Hirsch's vocals are a little rough by this point, but I do like her aged voice. Like I said before, I think it's got a lot of character. I mean, are you going to complain about Tom Waits' raspy voice? Come on. Um, anyway, um, please note, though, that I am a fan, and I think non fans would definitely have a harder time getting into this one. Not the
Mhm.
place to start, but for newbies, 3.5 stars.
Okay. That one's a little bit higher for me. I do agree with most of the criticisms, though. This one might be a bit controversial. I guess we'll see. I'm going with the '03 self-titled album next. The band took a little bit of a break after Limbo, coming back in '03, and they let me down. This album is just a bit of the more standard, sort of duller Muser. It's probably the most dull Muses record that they ever made. The songs are just fine. I will say Kristen sounds pretty good here. There's just nothing of really note across the whole album. It just sort of makes me want to listen to the '90s records because it's just that sound with weaker production and weaker songs, to put it bluntly. I don't have a real highlight either across here. It just sort of does what it does. It's a Throwing Muses record, but you kind of strip it of most of the personality and most of sort of the character that the record has. Tanya shows up at points across this, and that's nice, but it doesn't really do a ton. It's just okay. I'm still at 2.5 stars. It does get better from here, though. So 2.5 for the '03 self-titled record.
Okay. Next in line, but we're up to 3.5 stars now for me. So I think these are very good albums. I like them. Next in line for me is going to be Hunkpapa. I think this is a good album. I think some of the songs on here, some of Throwing Muses' best songs, actually, and very interesting. This is really where you can start to hear Tanya and Kristen diverge a little bit, I think. And it's going to become even more pronounced the next album in. But here is some there's Kristen is just starting to focus her songwriting, I think. Rich describing Purgotory was these song fragments. She will put together Kristen will put together, I think, a single song uh, from fragments of multiple songs that she comes up with. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Here, though, I think more rock or pop formal structures start to take place with these songs. They're not the drastic wild tempo changes. They're not the multi-influential new wave, country, punk, folk, even influences that are and changes and time signatures that the early albums have, which I love. I love some of these early albums, but this one is just more focused, I think. Interesting. Bernie Worrell plays from the Parliament Funkadelic plays on this album. I did not know that, but I was like, Bernie Worrell, wow, amazing. He played he was a studio musician as well, and he played with the Talking Heads and a lot of different bands, so it's not that unique, but I thought, wow, didn't know this connection existed. So I think I like Devil's Roof a lot. It starts off with some nice acoustic guitar and some great tom work from I think it's pronounced David. Is it Narciso? Is that it? I always thought it was I always pronounced his name Narciso, I think, but it might be Narciso. I'm not sure. Anyway, great drummer.
Yeah,
Really
I
good drummer.
meant to look
What do
that
you
up
think, Rich?
before this video. Damn it.
Uh,
I've always said in my mind Narciso.
okay, that's what I did too. And then Adrian sent out that YouTube video that did a little retrospective of Throwing Muses, and the guy that created the video pronounced it Narciso, and I was like, oh, huh, interesting. Anyway, uh,
I think I'm going
uh,
to say Narciso, and I apologize, David, if you're watching, if I'm mispronouncing it.
well, I'll do that with you. I'll pronounce it Narciso as well. It's some great drum work from him on this song, I think. Uh, some of the lyrics are crazy, and I love them. I'm two-headed, one free, one sticky. And then I don't think I've ever heard anybody ask for their husband in a art rock song before, but here we go. It's like, wow, this is so the unconventional lyrics I really love. And she's again starting to focus her songwriting here into more formal structures. There's some nice flange work on Kristen's guitar. We've got art pop here, sort of an informal composition. I think this is a very strong Throwing Muses song. Again, really art rock slash pop here. Rocking and yet relaxed, all in one song. There's some frantic guitar work closing this song, though, that I really like. Again, such an underrated guitar player, Kristen is, I think. Busy, probably the single from this album, I think is really good. It's got a funky intro. It sort of slows down a bit into a nice rhythm, and then it comes up with some really good earworms, some fantastic hooks in the song. Kristen's working more towards formalized pop structures again. So this, I think, is one of the best tracks on the album. No parachutes. Just as a composer, she's really starting to bloom here. Dragon Head's got some nice vocals between Tanya and Kristen. Say Goodbye is really could fit within Kristen's solo work. It's just her and a solo acoustic. and just a single verse, real interlude. It's an interlude of a song. It's pretty short. Fall Down, I like her observational lyrics through her very unique take. And I think it's a good song, not a standout track, but I do like it. I'm Alive, it's got some Mexican and country influence. It is unique. I'm not sure though that it has very memorable hooks in it. I'm not sure the melodies really stay with me. And then Angel, which is Tanya's song, I really like that. It's Tanya's and her pop focus, and it's you can hear them starting to separate from each other in their songwriting and their approach to music. And she's really this is Tanya really starting to shine as an individual songwriter. I think I really like this song. This is one of my favorite Tanya songs. Mania's got this great country swing, so the country influence is still here on this album, starting to wane, and it's going to be gone. Not too long after this, but for now, it still shows up, and Kristen's all over the map here vocally, right? She's shouting, she's got these wild outbursts and screams, and that yet she can get very soft. The Burroughs a country interlude take not so great. It's okay, but it drags. And then Santa Claus, uh, sort of overlaps with take a little bit. It's more enjoyable, but it's not a strong closer. I give this album 3.5 stars. I do enjoy it. I think this is a good album, very good album, in fact.
Okay, cool. My number 8 is Throwing Muses, their second self-titled album. It's from 2003, their eighth album. I bought this one soon after it came out back in the day, but I never really took to it. Apart from the wonderful art on the CD cover and inside the CD package, really cool. Um, this is the Muse's thrashiest, noisiest album, I'd say. I would put it on and then just lose interest. But now that I've given it a thorough examination, I have a much greater appreciation for it. I can see why I sort of rejected it. The thrashiest, noisiest, and least melodic tracks are all in the front half, and they're simply not as good. But starting with Speed and Sleep, the album gets really good. Solar Dip is like a cross between punk rock and classic Throwing Muses alt rock. Tanya Donnelly is back to sing vocals on almost half of these tracks, and it's a very welcome return. She sings on the fascinating multi part Half Blast and the excellent closer Flying. I'm up to 3.75 stars. Really good.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Going up from here, I will round out the newer stuff. I have Purgatory Paradise, so all of my favorite stuff is the pre-reunion records. Duh. This is a solid step up from the self-titled '03 record. The band is still not firing at its peak forms. I think that both of you are correct. I think that this is by far the furthest they ever strayed away from their stereotypical formula and their sound. And for that, I think that it's really cool. Counterpoint, there's 32 songs and it's nearly 70 minutes long. What the fuck, Kristen? This is way too long. But anyways, my main issues here, like I'm saying, are fundamental. There's too many songs. The vast majority of them are barely over a minute and a half. You just can't sink your teeth into them. So it's like, why are they there? It's just confusing. I'm not going to listen to them again, and I'm not going to listen to the album again because it's so damn long. A good bit of the more developed songs on here, though, are fairly strong. My favorites of which being Opiates and Milan. It's just too much material, man. Doesn't properly justify its length either. I do like that it's not quite what they do. There's like a slight semblance to where I like that it sort of flows very well together. I don't know though. There's just nothing to really draw you in properly like a great Muses record does. It's too long. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm at 3 stars for it. It's my last record at 3 stars. Only good things going up from here. So number 8, Purgatory Paradise, 3 stars.
Okay. All right. I don't have either self-titled album yet. So, but the next one I do have on my list is House Tornado. Still, it's at 3.5 for me. I really like this album. I love Colder, the opening track to this album. Kristen, as both a guitarist and a songwriting and a songwriter, she's really starting to flourish. And in particular with this songs, I love her free and impulsive singing. Uh, sometimes she can just be almost pure id with her outbursts, and I love it. I love it. It is highly expressive. I think it gives her a unique view. It puts her unique stamp on a song, gives a unique viewpoint to the song. Mexican Woman is a focused art pop song. It's nice and tight, country influence. The River I like a lot too. Now this is a Tanya song, and it's got a very slow and somber start to it, and then it starts picking up and it just rolls along real smooth and nice. Tanya's vocal work on this is beautiful. It's a very nice song. It's a standout Tanya song for sure. I like. It's a good pop ditty. It's catchy. Could have been a single off of this album. Marriage Tree is a typical Throwing Muses song. It's good. It's not great, but it has those signature characteristics. Lots of tempo changes. Kristen has never played an arpeggio on guitar that she hates, and it's full of that, full of those arpeggios where she's dancing around the chords with single notes, and it's she's I just love her playing style. It's wonderful. It's a little too long though, and so is Run Letter. That could have used some editing. I think it's over 5 minutes, and it's the longest song on this album. Saving Grace, though, it switches up here. Saving Grace, very REM influenced, really REM influenced. You can hear it from the jangly guitars and the harmonies between Kristen and Tanya. It's got Athens, Georgia. It's got REM all over it. Drive is a good upbeat tune, nothing memorable. Downtown, I like the way it starts off with those ominous dissonant chords, and I like, again, Kristen's got these real surreal but very observational lyrics. It's art pop, and again, she's putting all those vocal ticks that she has into the song. Really love it. And then I think Rich mentioned this earlier, Giant. I like that stutter step rhythm and the pop vibes from Tanya. A good performance from Tanya. Walking in the Dark, more jangly pop. I think Kristen's starting though to get some focus and starting to edit her own compositions, and it's starting to show here. It's a decent closer to this album, I think. And I give this album 3.5 stars. Again, it's the early Throwing Muses I like. I think they had such a unique sound, and so I'm a sucker for it. And I enjoy House Tornado. Not their best, not their greatest, but I think it's a very good album.
All right. My number 7 is, wait for it, Sun Racket. Finally, the Sun Racket, their 10th most recent album from 2020. It took me a while to get into this one, but I really dig it now. A lot of it has a grimy, subdued alt rock feel, nice and dirty. The opening track, Dark Blue, is like that. It starts with a weird intro before launching into a dark, heavy pulse. Two very good, mellower cuts follow, and then we get to Bo Diddley's bridge. It has a strange beginning before launching into heavy rock and then transforming into a piano led piece about halfway. It's like a mashup of two different songs, not unusual for the Muses.
Mm-hmm.
Next song, Milk at McDonald's, reminds me of late period Tom Waits. Tom Waits again, with its unusual percussion and guitar sound. The lyrics on the album are poetic, largely inscrutable, yet evocative nonetheless. Upstairs Dan sounds subdued and sinister. Suze is a really nice, easygoing closer. I'm just going to say it. I think Kristen sounds great on Sun Racket. I think her voice has aged well. Very good album. 4 stars.
Okay. You do what you gotta do, man. Nothing wrong with that. Next up for me, I have House Tornado. Maybe we're upsetting some of their really early fans by having this record pretty low. Be better. This is an album that I like the concept and the style of it over the execution. Reminds me a bit of what Sonic Youth were doing at this time, which I actually get a lot of Sonic Youth throughout the span. They're less frantic and a bit more calm. For instance, Kristen at points even sounds a bit like Kim Gordon earlier on. The songs are very strong, but it's very hit or miss between like great and good Muses songs. My favorites being Marriage Tree and Giant. On the whole, though, it does miss some of the energy, some of the spontaneity that's found on the debut record. It's good, but I think with a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of a better track listing here, it could be really great. At 3.5 stars, though, I still do enjoy listening to this record. But I don't know. I wish that on this one and later Hunkpapa as well, I wish that they were a bit more like 50-50 between Tanya and Kristen, because I think that that's sort of always the issue with Muses, really, is they didn't utilize Tanya enough earlier on, I think. Would have really blended and gave those earlier records a bit more of sort of that pop style that she brings to the band. But still a good record. 3.5 stars for House Tornado.
Yeah, I wish I knew the history of the band. I don't know if Kristen was just such a dominant force. I mean, they were friends in grade school and then became stepsisters. So they've got this unique relationship between them. And I don't think, as Rich mentioned earlier, Tanya returns. And I've seen some live shows that Kristen and Tanya did together, just the two of them with acoustic guitars. And it looked like they played pubs and bars across the U.S. And it was really good. They're great live together. I love their harmonies. I think their vocals are so different that they really harmonize with each other wonderfully. I
Makes you
love
wish that they
listening to
did.
them.
Makes you wish that they did more harmonies. They really underutilized that earlier on.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That I agree with. Definitely, Adrian. Okay.
Yeah.
We're
Uh,
down to number 6. Is that right? Is it my turn? It is my turn, yes. Should I wait? Sorry.
number 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Number 6 for me. And it's a 3.5 star, almost 4 star album, but it's going to be Red Heaven. I think it's a good album. I enjoy listening to this album. Um, there's not one track off of this album though that I would pick out and put in like a best of, or there's some very good tracks on this. Firepile's one of them, but I just something happened. Tanya obviously left right before the recording sessions here, and it's sort of left them in a limbo state. I know they've got an album named Limbo that's coming up here soon, but I think they were sort of lost without her. And it's basically at this point down to David and Kristen from the original group, and it shows somewhat. But this album also is a sign of things to come, in particular the following album after this and Limbo later, and even the 2003 self-title. This album takes on a different approach. The songwriting is absolutely more focused on this album. This is a harder rock album. I like the edge to this album. I like Kristen's guitar on this album. I think this is, I think they made the best of what they could with Tanya leaving. And because, as you said, Adrian, they didn't utilize her enough, I'm sure that's why she left. Um, So it starts off with Furious. I don't This isn't a great opener to me. This is I would not have put this song as an opener to this album. It sort of lumbers along. It doesn't really rock hard like you want. And what's coming up here soon will have a much harder edge to it, a better rock groove to it. This song, though, does signal the different direction for the Throwing Muses, I think, after the Real Ramona. This was the follow up to Real Ramona. Hirsch's guitar is brought more into focus here. And she starts to expand into psychedelic rock territory. She's also got this grunge influence and Pixies influence that's coming through that you can hear in here in her guitar work. So better things to come though. Fire Pile, I think, is a much better song. I like that stutter step of a groove. I think it's got better hooks and melodies. I like her menace on this song. She's got a real like vocal grit and ominous sound to it. And that Fire Pile's your home. The great lyrics. And this song's got great cowbell in it. And of course, cowbell automatically gives a song a half-star bump, right? David again, great playing on this song. Dio, which is a duet with Mr. Bob Mould from Husker Du. I think this is a fine rock song. This is definitely a much more straight ahead rock song for Bob than he had done in a while, and I think it's good. I like he and Kristen switch verses on the song. I don't think there's anything special to it though, and certainly nothing as great as the duo on the song would indicate. Right? You think, oh man, this is interesting. Bob Mould and Kristen Hirsch. This should sound great. This should be spectacular. I don't think it reaches that level. She did duet and her solo work with other artists like Michael Stipe, for instance. That song is very good. Dirty Water. I like the big beats from David here. Kristen's vocals sound like they're on the edge. She starts off with these dissonant chords and these really dark lyrics. Really good guitar work on here. There's an interlude named Stroll. Pearl, I think, is one of the standout tracks on this album. I really like it a lot. Begins with this beautiful acoustic guitar vamp, and then Kristen's got some sublime vocals. Her singing here is quite beautiful, quite touching. It's a very coy song though about jealousy. It's one of the better songs again on this album, and it would fit also within her solo work, I think. After 2 minutes in, the song starts to kick into overdrive, and David's got some great tom fills in here. Some of his finest drumming, I think, is on this song. Pearl's it's a standout track here. I really like it. Summer Street, it's good, but nothing special. Vic and Back Road, I don't dig these songs that much. They're just sort of stumble along with no purpose, and they sound like they don't sound like a fully formed song or songs. They're sort of in a rough draft form. The Visit, though, I do like. The song kicks into gear from the start, and it's an improvement over those previous two. There's another interlude, and then Rosetta Stone is probably the most Throwing Muses song on this album again. Going back to earlier work and the attributes from that earlier stamp of a Throwing Muses song. You got your time changes, you have your stream of conscious lyrics, and your cut and paste collection, I think, of snippets of other songs. The only thing that's missing would be any country influence from their earlier work, but it's still quite a good indie rock song. Carnival Wig, I think, is a letdown. It's not that great of a closer. It just doesn't do it for me, I guess. It sounds like it was created as filler, so I'm not quite sure, what they were intending with it, but I didn't enjoy it that much. Overall, if there were a couple better songs on here, this would be a 4-star album, but it's certainly it's almost 4. It's 3.5 stars for me, but I do like it. It's a very good, and I like the change in sound and focus, and what's to come is just blow away good. So, but I'll leave that for further on down the list. So 3.5.
All right, cool. Yeah, it sounds like you don't like the more draggy songs on that album, Furious and Back Road, which I actually love. I
Cool.
like how Furious kind of slowly unfolds to open the album instead of banging you over the head with a
Right.
rocker. It's just something different. I think it's cool. Anyway, my number 6 is Hunkpapa, their third album. It's from 1989. The newfound melodicism here is apparent right from the opening track. Without a doubt, these songs are more accessible. It's a big step up from House Tornado, in my opinion. The poppiest song is Dizzy, which, if what I read is correct, the band deplored. I I guess it was not going in the direction that they wanted. Uh, but I think it's a worthy single regardless. Very catchy. No Parachutes has, as Patrick mentioned, has background keys from no less than Bernie Worrell. Very, very odd pairing, but it works.
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
Tanya Donnelly's multi-part Dragon Head is a standout. We have some train beats uh, on I'm Alive, and The Burrow, which has major cowpunk vibes. Take is excellent, and I love the horns. This is really good stuff, not a weak track in the bunch, but I just don't think they're at their peak yet. And I just found out that one of the best tracks, Santa Claus. I love that one. I did that killer guitar.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, Santa Claus rocks. But it's actually a bonus track, so I can't quite get to excellent
Oh,
here. Um,
I didn't
but
know
this
that.
is, yeah. Well, I didn't either until recently. It was just the last
Ah,
song on my CD. Um,
right.
but yeah, that hurts it for me. And really, really good, but just not peak Muses yet. Um, so I'm at 4.25. Very, very good.
I'm still at 3.5 for Hunkpapa. Knowing what comes after this record, you know what they're getting into later. The band's tighter, the songs are a bit more focused. Tanya especially comes into a bit of her own across here, while Kristen further solidifies what she had been doing previously. The album adds in a bit more auxiliary instrumentation and experiments a bit with more pop-friendly song structures, and it works very well. The majority of the songs being a bit more acoustic in nature. And I just think that the parts are stronger on the whole here compared to House Tornado. Not sure entirely if it's the flow or the more variant styles that they're going for, but I just don't love how this album plays. It's still good. They're just a bit off from what they would become and what they would later grow into. I have it at 3.5. However, my favorite Throwing Muses song actually comes from this record, so we will see that later. So 3.5 stars for Punk Papa.
Cool. I have a top 10 track from this album too. So, um, awesome. Okay. God, the slander you guys were giving the 2003 Throwing Muses self-titled album. What the heck? No, I'm kidding. You guys weren't that bad on it. After all, Rich started out at 3.5 stars and just he's been working up from there. This album is a 4-star album for me. It's next on my list, but I really like this album. This was a great, I thought this was a great comeback from, I suppose, what you could call a very large interval between their previous record and this. But I don't want to say they were a legacy act, but yeah, you could say they were a legacy act in a way, right? They had taken such a long break. Kristen hadn't; she was still doing solo work, but as a band, as an outfit, um, they had been away for a while. Plus, Tanya comes back on this album. I think, boy, I love Mercury. I think that's a great song. Really rocks hard. I really like that song. There's the three lead off tracks to this album I think are really good. Pretty or Not, Civil Disobedience, they all rock hard. They've got catchy hooks. I really like them. I think this is a strong reappearance of Throwing Muses, and Rich thought it was backloaded. I do think it continues to improve. and it has such a strong start from those three. When you get to Portia and Epiphany, boy, you're doing great. I think here they did utilize Tanya to a much better degree than they had previously. And that just may be of Tanya's doing. I have no idea. I don't know the history. I know that she relied on Kristen for the majority of songwriting, but she definitely has her strong her strong suit is definitely her pop hooks. Um, you know, I don't know if there's I don't really think there's a bad track on this album. It even lost Flamingos and Half Blast. Half Blast's a little long, but I still think it's a really good track. Flying is a good closer, not great, but and this album may be a little long. It's 51 minutes. I suppose you could cut a couple of songs here. I don't think there's anything that is that justifies skipping the song. So I don't know what you would cut necessarily, but there's a few weaker tracks. I don't know, maybe Solar Dip, maybe I don't know, Speed and Sleep. I don't know because it's a little long, but I don't know. It's 4-star album. I think it's great. I think it's a really good reemergence of Throwing Muses. It was good to see Tanya come back. I think they rock really hard on here. Kristen still sounds great. Her guitar playing's fantastic. I really like this album. Sorry. Thought this was a good album.
Yeah, it's okay.
Cool. The ones I would cut are Pretty or Not, Status Quo, and Civil Disobedience.
Boy, I like Civil Disobedience. Oh well. It's
Yeah,
only 3 minutes,
it's
14
okay.
seconds.
It's okay.
So.
It's okay, but it's cuttable for me.
Okay. Cool.
This might be controversial. My number 5 is the Real Ramona from 1991, their 4th album. And I went totally apeshit for this album when it came out, and I've heard it countless times. This is killer alternative rock. Right off the bat, you get some serious guitar drama with Counting Backwards, with those tasty tumbling drums from David N. I'm just going to call him David N.
David N.
Him dancing is a totally addictive short song, while Red Shoes is surging and so emotional. The guitar heroics on Ellen West and Hook in Her Head are delightful. And Tanya Donnelly's songwriting contributions, Not Too Soon and Honey Chain, are exquisite. This album is the most perfect wedding of Kristen Hirsch's eccentricities with Tanya's pop sensibilities, I think. I've got every song here at 5 stars, except there is one song that annoys me, and that would be Golden Thing. Golden Thing, and when you get there, better kiss me.
I get
Just
it.
annoys me. I can't help it. It's always irked me. That
Wow.
song gets a meh rating for me, and that is a big reason why this album places where it does. The competition in my top 5 is super tight, so having an excellent album with one fatal flaw counts for a lot. But despite that, this is easily a 5-star album. I love it so much. Real Ramona at 5.
5. Wow.
I'll give you Golden Thing is definitely the weakness of the record. However, at number 5 is absolutely fucking absurd. We will get there considerably later, but okay.
I've got Golden Thing in my top 10. No, I don't. I'm kidding.
Well, that's good. I mean,
If it's any
still,
comfort,
Rich
all my
has stuck
top
a
5s
dagger
are
through my heart.
it's still a good song, mind you, but it's
I'm
definitely
kidding.
like, especially how it comes into the record. It's such a weird thing in the sequencing because it's so different. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there in like a half.
Yes, we will
Anyways.
get there. Yes.
Okay.
Number 5 for me, I've got Red Heaven. Yeah, whatever followed the Real Ramona is going to be a disappointment. Unfortunately, this is the worst one of the 90s, though, so regardless, it disappointed me worse. This is the first record without Tanya, and I have to fully agree with Patrick. They had absolutely no fucking idea what they were doing. They were in Purgatory, they were in Limbo, and basically just made the same record like 5 times. Just, I mean, it's pretty good. I like them. I have the majority of these upcoming records at 4 stars. I do love Kristen, but her more sort of shrill, kind of shouty vocal style, it gets to be a bit grating over time. I like her. She can be annoying, though. Despite that, the songs here are still pretty top notch, and the bass playing, especially across this record, these next couple are where the rhythm section really elevates things. Davy Baby, we'll call him that, and Bernard are just really excellent across these. I am missing a bit of the poppier side of things across this record, though, but it's a cool little alt rock record, my favorites of which were Dirty Water, Pearl, and The Visit, although I can say comfortably, those are not my favorites anymore because there is one song that leeches its way into my top 5 from this record. On the whole, though, it's really good. I like Kristen as a performer and writer. I like the band a lot. I'm at 4 stars for it. I think it's really good. However, it's a letdown. So number 5, Red Heaven, 4 stars.
4-star album being a letdown. That's pretty good. Okay. Next in line, we're number 4? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Number 4 for me is going to be Limbo. I think this is far and away the best, along maybe with its predecessor. This is the best produced Throwing Muses album. It sounds fantastic. It was professionally produced in a real recording studio, and you can hear it. This is like with the previous albums, and after Tanya had left, in particular, starting with the predecessor to this album, they had become a power trio with just Bernard George on bass, just a fantastic bass player, really impressive. And again, David on drums, Kristen taking guitars and vocals and songwriting duty. And the reason I don't give this album more stars, it's right solidly a 4-star album, is because it's not consistently great. But some of my favorite songs are off of this album. Some of their best songs, I think, are off this album. And I love the production value on this album. They sound fantastic. They just sound really, really good. Buzz, I think, is a great opener. Continues on with these indie rock vibes from the predecessor album, University. And it's got a good balance between all the instruments and Kristen's vocals. You can hear the improvements with production starting with this very song. Ruthie's Knocking, this could have been a single, and you can hear the Seattle grunge influence in here. There's a step up in tempo, I think, that provides a good structure to this song. And Chris, her songwriting is in full blossom here. Great bass. Again, there's some really great bass lines in here. Freeloader, it just starts off with Kristen on guitar and the opening melody that the band will build from. And then in about under a minute, it really starts to kick into a really good hard rock song. And towards the end, it gels into what I think is a great rock song. I really like Freeloader. This is a standout track on this album. Her acoustic guitar breakdown there in the bridge in the middle of this song is fantastic. Great track, really standout track on this album. The Field, its loping rhythms, it really is pronounced here. It's a good song. I don't think it's one of the best on the album, but I really hear Kristen's that manic attitude in this song. It shows up in her singing, and again, the bass work from Bernard is just fantastic on the song. The title song, surprisingly, isn't all that great. I wish it were better. I think it's one of the weaker tracks on here, but it's followed up by Tar Kissers, and I freaking love this song. This is an amazing song, and it's absolutely the standout track on this album. I like the sexual satire of the lyrics. It's got fantastic hooks. Its tempos are all over the place, and they switch on a dime. It rocks hard, and in a way, it almost works as a perfect rock single to me. I wish every song on this album was as strong as this one. It's just over 3 minutes long. It's just boiled down. It's the most efficient Throwing Muses signature song I've ever heard. It's got everything. It's got everything that made them great. Such a good song. And the lyrics are so wild. Just great song. Anyway, Tango. I think I like the atmosphere of this song. Some of the lyrics, like "Thank you for chaining me to the bed," that was sweet. Oh, wow. There's some really, I just, some of her lyrics, they just are like, wow, they hit you over the head. I love it. The song has, again, the trademarks, similar trademarks from a Throwing Muses signature song. Wild tempo swings again, surreal lyrics, expressive vocals, great guitar work. It's a really good song. Serene is a pretty song, just a violin and Kristen's acoustic guitar. Again, could fit within her solo work. Night Driving, it's a slow tempo song, but I think I prefer it to the previous song, which was Mr. Bones. It's good. It's okay. It's a slower tempo. It's nothing outstanding, I think. Cowbirds is probably the last time country comes into a Throwing Muses song as an influence. It's been a while. There had been a break of those country overtones in their songs, but here it's prominent. It's not necessarily one of their better ones, but it's got some funny lyrics. The tempo picks up after the first minute or so, and it's a decent Throwing Muses song. It's good. I would not skip it. And then Shark is a good rocker. It's Kristen. She's got this very convincing, nasty snarl to her voice. I really love this song. This is really good. And it's got this outro that's prog rock like. It's pretty wild. It's really a fascinating song. I find it very interesting. Then it fades out, and there is a hidden track. I, I don't know if it's okay to mention it, but I will mention it. It's called White Bikini Sand. It's good. It's got a Hawaiian feel to it. Again, aquatic themes in the song. Boy, there's so many water slash aquatic themes all over the Throwing Muses songs from Kristen's mind. It's like, wow, it's amazing. Anyway, it's a nice little hidden gem. But it's not a great song. Um, but this album is very strong. It just doesn't go over the threshold for much for me. And I think it's got its peaks and it's got its valleys, but boy, those peaks are spectacular on this album. Really, really good. And this is like the last of a very good run for them. Here they'll break and then they won't come back until 2003. But Limbo, very, very good Throwing Muses album. Really enjoyed it.
All right, very
Everything
cool.
okay?
Yeah, okay. So my number 4 is Red Heaven from 1992, their fifth album. Tanya Donnelly is gone, and we are now mainlining Kristen Hirsch. Red Heaven is a noticeably heavier album, and it sounds rawer, as does Kristen in both voice and lyric. Dirty Water is a sinister rocker, and I love the lines, "Don't touch me, there's history on your hands." I love how there are periodic interludes that allow the listener to breathe for a bit. This is where we see Hirsch begin to add brilliant background singing overdubs and harmonizing with herself, such as on the rollicking The Visit. The tempo shift in Rosetta Stone is positively euphoric and provides a wonderful climax before the devastating closer, Carnival Wig. That track and the one that closes the first side, the equally stunning Pearl, stand out as monumental achievements in the Throwing Muses canon, to my mind anyway. Uh, this was my favorite Throwing Muses album for quite a while. But like the
Mm.
Real Ramona, there's one track that holds it back, and that would be Dio, the collaboration they did with Bob Mould. It sounds totally forced. I think it's a mediocre song. but everything else is truly excellent. And the lovely Leslie Langston is back on bass, if only for this recording. 5 stars.
You're not a huge Bob Mould fan, generally speaking, are you, though, right? Like, you don't love Husker Du?
Oh, well, I got to 4.5 on Zen Arcade.
Really?
But no, I'm not really a big fan. I like some of his solo stuff, and I tell you what, I am a big fan of Sugar, or Copper Blue in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Sugar too.
Yeah, Sugar are cool. We'll keep that in mind, actually. But anyways,
Oh, Sugar's great. Yeah, definitely check out Copper Blue.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
that record's really good. I suppose it is time for me to have my moment of like retribution or whatever on Rich or whatever. I'm fairly confident this is going to be both of your number ones. I have University at number four. My thoughts are roughly fairly similar to Red Heaven here. It's got a good sound. The band has really perfected their formula at this point. The rhythm section is great, and Kristen sounds really good on here. The songs are still definitely a step down from Real Ramona, though. And the title track on here, I think, might be their worst song. I don't think that song's very good at all. And to be as honest as I can, I'm just missing Tanya across these records. Her more sort of upfront pop stylings really help provide a lot of diversity, and the sort of harmonizing vocals that they did really help things out. I don't know. Crabtown and Flood were probably my favorites on here. I actually looked. This is an album that doesn't have anything in my top 10, so it is what it is. I'm still at 4 stars. However, these albums would just be so much better with Tanya on them, I feel. So number four, University, 4 stars.
I think these albums could grow on you if you choose to continue listening.
I think that my next two will. I don't think those two will. That's what I'll say.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, this cluster of albums right in here, it's always hard to tell. This will be number three, my next on the list, and we're talking 4.5 star territory here. Is going to be the Throwing Muses debut album. This is one hell of a debut album. I don't know what the current status of this album is, but it is not streamable except on YouTube. I don't even I haven't looked on Discogs to find if it's available on either CD or vinyl. Their catalog's damn near impossible. Anything previous to 2000 is damn near impossible to find on vinyl. Although it may be because it's 4AD. I don't know the label. It's an English label. It's a British label. And that but it costs way too much to import over here. So I'm just going to have to stick to streaming for the time being, but I'm hoping it gets a repress. In particular, these next three albums for me, I hope they get a repress at some point in time because they deserve it. Call Me, boy, what a great opener to an album. The vocal interplay between Tanya Donnelly and Kristen Hirsch is just spectacular. When they are playing off each other, when they're harmonizing with each other, it's just a wonderful thing to hear. And you can feel the nervous energy in this album or on the song. It's a very, there's no typical structure to the song arrangement. It definitely sounds like it's patched together from rough draft songs or smaller songs, but it works. It works. It's amazing that they were this mature. That Kristen in particular was this mature with their songwriting this early on. There's no verse, chorus, bridge structure here, right? It's just tempo shifts, influence, genre influences all over the map here. I can hear new wave in here. The herky jerky rhythms of early 80s new wave is present in here. There's country in this song, there's punk, there's folk. It's an amazing, it's such a strong opener for such a good album. Green, here we go with Tanya coming up with a really nice art pop song, I think. She would get much more pop than this, but she still fills it with hooks. And I don't know if vocally here Kristen was an influence on Tanya, but she has her own quivers and shakes and vibratos and just outbursts in her singing here. And it's got a manic feel of its all of its own. And it really works as a great follow up to Call Me. It's a very strong song. Hate My Way. This is definitely gonna show up in my top 10 for sure. I love this song. I think it's got a fantastic performance from Kristen. Her voice is the ultimate in expression on this song. She's just full of angst and pin-up rage. Some of the lyrics on the song, my pillow screams too, but so does my kitchen and water and my shoes and the road. I have a gun in my head. I'm invisible. I can't find the ice. A slug on TV. I hate my way. This is this is really, she just comes out a fully formed, confident songwriter that can just utilize and put together this sort of stream of conscious, off the top of my head, lyrical passages that are just somehow make sense, even though they're surreal and abstract. There's something about it that just appeals to me, I guess. And this song, boy, just such a great song. Vicky's Box, I like. Here again, great arpeggio guitar work from Kristen on this. It shines on this song. And then she's growling and sneering, and that mercurial voice that she's got, it's on full display here. She never had a great range, and there's some gruff to her vocals, scratchy quality to her vocals. And sometimes it's totally devoid of any sweetness. But I love the emotional impact that she can convey in a song, and it's here by the truckload. Vicky's Box, great song. Rabbit's dying. Uh-oh, somebody's pregnant. We got a total country jam on this song, really. It's almost completely country, although there's some art pop that shows up and it sort of like shifts the focus of this song. It's country punk, uh, but yet, again, a different middle bridge to anything surrounding it. I really enjoy that song. America, it's got that gallop, got that country western gallop. They like both. They like both types of music, country and western, and it keeps the song moving along. It's a bop. It's fun. I like the vocal call and response between Kristen and Tanya on this song. Fear starts off with traffic noises and disjointed rhythms, and again, it's got a new wave and art pop sensibility about it. I love her guitar work. She does some great guitar work right from the start here. I like Tanya's backup singing to Kristen as well here. Stand Up, I like those stutter stop vocals. And it's got a really slinky bass groove that makes the song very interesting. Soul Soldier is probably, it's not one of my favorite tracks on here. It's the longest song on the album. Great tom work from David Narciso, but it keeps that first third of the song moving. And then her rhythm guitar work, Kristen's rhythm guitar work, really compelling. Again, it sounds like a mashup of several shorter songs that she was working on. And then Delicate Cutters, it's just Kristen and solo guitar with Dave providing some atmospheric tom work towards the end. But I think this song, again, sounds almost like a solo song or a song from her solo catalog. But it's a good closer. I really like it. As the title describes, it's a delicate song. And Kristen does those solo acoustic guitar songs really nice. She's such a good songwriter, even this early. I mean, there's really nothing that holds it necessarily back from 5 star, except for maybe maturity in the songwriting. I know it's to come. Maybe I'm judging it unfairly based on that, but I mean, 4.5 for a debut album from such young musicians. I mean, they were so young when they came out with this. It just blew my socks off. And listening to it again, I enjoy it so much. It's a wonderful album. I really, really love their debut album. Self-titled, number 3, Throwing Muses, 1986.
Nice. I will throw it out there. I looked on both Discogs and eBay, and if you want this album on CD, you are going to be paying a pretty penny.
Oh,
I
really?
can't
Wow.
even
Okay.
imagine the vinyl.
What you
Right.
want is the Doghouse
Right.
compilation. It's called
And
In the
that's with House
Doghouse.
Tornado, and it's both
It's
this
it's
and
got
House Tornado, right?
it's a compilation that's got the debut album on the first disc, plus I think it's called the Fat Skier EP, or maybe another
Mm.
EP, four extra songs, which are great. The
Uh-huh.
second disc has the Doghouse cassette, which is like
Ah,
the demo version
right.
of their debut album. And
Right.
plus it
Right.
has uh about five bonus cuts that were songs uh Kristen wrote when she was a teenager, and they re-recorded them, and those are really cool too. So I highly recommend getting
Cool.
the Doghouse compilation.
Yeah.
I think
I'll look
it's
into it.
called In the
Thanks, Rich.
Doghouse. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, my number three is also the debut from 1986, self-titled, and yeah, this is lightning in a bottle. It came out when the Muses were barely out of their teens. It was a like we're saying, very rare, very hard to get a hold of. Um, I think it's still easy to get the Doghouse compilation. Last I checked, it was released in 1998, um, and that was the first time I'd heard it. Really, I hadn't heard the debut, even though I had been a fan for years. Just never had the opportunity. Um, but boy, did I snatch up that double CD! Wow. Okay, the Muses were highly original right out of the gate. They never sounded more original than they do on this debut, I think. Um, Sort of a mixture of post punk, folk, a little rockabilly, country influence, incorporating sophisticated rhythms and tempo changes, very off kilter. They were great at making songs that evolved and changed in some way. The emotions on display here are extremely raw, and Kristen Hirsch's mercurial singing is strange and stunning. Kristen is a fascinating person. For one thing, she has synesthesia. She sees
Yes.
musical she sees musical chords and
Yeah.
colors. When
Yeah.
she was 16, a car hit her when she was riding a bike, and she received a double concussion, which affected the way she hears sounds. Um, Apparently, her mind is flooded with ambient sounds, which she forms into songs. And she has
Yeah.
no mem.
She has audio hallucinations. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's wild. Yeah.
she has no memory of writing these early songs, claiming they wrote her. She has always been very
Amazing.
prolific. Also of note is drummer David N., a very talented guy. Uh, when he first got his hands on a drum kit, it didn't have any cymbals, and that became an early trademark of their sound. And we can't forget Leslie Langston, who is a quirky and melodic bassist. But yeah, the whole album is great. I do think the first side is strongest. As mentioned, it includes Tanya Donnelly's lone contribution, Green, which hints at her more pop oriented songwriting sensibilities. I think here it was designed to fit in with Kristen's stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I love Rabbits Dying, which creeps along and then explodes into action. All these songs are quirky and weird. The closer, Delicate Cutters, is great. Call it a folk song, but a unique one and a disturbing one at that. Um, I suspect it is about the practice of cutting, in which people,
Oh,
usually young,
self-cutting. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
It
know.
might be. She had a rough childhood, so it very well may be.
That's what it made me think of, but I don't really know. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, it's when people cut themselves to feel a pain that is stronger than the pain they feel in their head. I don't know if that's what this is about, but anyway, yeah, like Patrick was saying, they're so young to come up with something this original and creative. Wow, 5 stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's keep talking about it. That is my number 3 as well. Finally, some overlap. Here we go. This is quite a strong record. I'm at 4 stars for it, and it demonstrates what makes the band really special right away. Frantic yet controlled alt-rock songs with great melodicisms and energy to them. This record is mainly hurt due to YouTube sucking, making it all kind of blend together a bit, which, I don't know, despite that, the songs do kind of sound fairly similar and follow roughly the same formula, which is kind of the issue with all Muses records, except for Real Ramona, so that's why it's the best one. But anyways, if you like the template, the album's going to work for you. But honestly, this record can grow a bit taxing in my opinion. It is still really good though. I think both Tanya and Kristen already are out of the gate making really cool songs. The group of musicians here are pretty much don't show up that often again, but they're still really strong. I don't know. It's just a really enjoyable album. You guys talked about it very well. I just think it's pretty much them at their rawest, their most sort of unsophisticated, but they're still a sophisticated group. Just a really good album. 4 stars. Really enjoy it. Throwing Muses, 1986.
Okay. Gosh, I don't, yeah, I don't know what that pattern or template would be for throwing Muses this early on. It's everything sounds just wild. It's just the tone and the influences and the tempo shifts are so sudden in a lot of these songs. It's always exciting to me where it goes. But I do think that they did develop a signature sound, and this was the at least it was the start of it on their debut, for sure. So my number 2 is, now we're in 5-star territory, and it's going to be the Real Ramona. I think it's a spectacular album. It could shift. It could, depending upon how I feel. We've got 2 5-star albums here at the top, just simply because I am not a hater of Golden Thing. I think it's a good song. Do I think it's the standout or one of the best tracks on the album? Probably not. But I still like it a lot, and I love Kristen singing. She's got, I like her she's got, as Richard mentioned earlier, when she's singing harmonies with herself, and they multi-track her voice, it's great. She does a great job.
It's just a
And it
personal hang up.
I don't know. I mean, I can look. We all like different things, so it's I don't think it's the greatest track on this album, but boy, counting backwards, maybe I love this and Bright Yellow Gun are probably the 2 best openers for songs to all of the Throwing Muses albums. It is counting backwards. What just a fantastic! It's so catchy. It's so catchy, but it's so unique. Uh, those those rotating arpeggios and the dissonant off-center chords that she plays somehow just work into just a great concise pop song where they keep this avant-garde edge about them. Because it's not a typical pop song per se, but my God, it's such an incredible earworm. This was the very first Throwing Muses song I ever heard. And it was such, that earworm just buried itself into my head and has never left. This will definitely be in the top 10. This is one of my very favorite Throwing Muses songs. I love it. Narciso on drums is just chef's kiss. He's so good on here. His playing stands out. Kristen's songwriting has really focused now. She's really matured, and she is in full bloom as a composer. And this song, so unique, so it doesn't follow really any type of formal pop structure, but it's focused. I love it. Tanya's backing vocals are perfect for Kristen on this song. It's got psychedelic indie rock, and it's one of the finest psych rock songs I think I've ever heard. It's so ear catching, so hummable, and that nice return on that premature fade out towards the outro here on this song, perfect. It just gives you that. It gives you that momentary break, and then bam, right back again. Love it, love it, love this song. Love it. Think it's a wonderful song. Him dancing, good bass work. From Fred Abong on this song, and particularly on this album. This is where the bass starts to become prominent, I think, on Throwing Muses recordings. It's a short song, but it's very poppy, but it's strong as well. Kristen's guitar work on Red Shoes is a standout. She's focusing again and producing some very catchy post-punk indie rock. They still keeping their art pop influences. Graffiti, I think, is another nice focus pop song. Got really good hooks. It's consistently listenable. This song, Graffiti, could have been a single from this album, I think. It's got great falsettos from Tanya, who's doing backing vocals on this song. And then Golden Thing, I've already discussed it. We won't belabor it. Ellen West, I think, is good, although it's not one of my favorites on this album. I know people really like this song. I'm not sure. It's art rock. It's got some interesting guitar work. It's a bit of a return, I think, to the Muses' earlier sound, but it's also still retaining some new elements, and it's getting harder. The rock in particular is gaining influence. I don't think it's a standout though. Dylan is just an interlude, and then Hook in Her Head. This is such an odd, weird song, but I still really like it. I love the guitar work on here. I like the surreal psychedelic lyrics. And then that breakdown in the middle with David just grooving. Just great work on the drums. He's such a good drummer. Such a good drummer. This one is long. It's over 6 minutes, but it keeps me interested throughout. I love the change ups. And just Kristen singing about watching the snow, and she's so tired. I love her voice on this song. The last third of the song, I think, rocks. Great guitar work again. And then here we go with peak Tanya Donnelly. This is peak Tanya Donnelly. This is peak power pop Throwing Muses. Not too soon. It's obvious that Tanya is going to split off because her songwriting is really getting strong here, and her viewpoint, her songwriting, characteristics are very different from Kristen's at this point. This is just, of course, this is an obvious single from this album. It's her vocals; they're just jaw-droppingly beautiful, and ominous at the same time. She coos on here, she growls, she can sing pretty and sound like a riot girl at the same time. And this is definitely just musically and vocally, this is one of the Throwing Muses' best performances on record. It's a pop perfection. It's a gem of a song, and it's an essential song from what I think is an essential album. And then she follows it up with this fantastic country tinged Honey Chain, and her singing again is just pure bliss. It's this pop country mashup. It's almost like a country psychedelic ballad. It's got some sweet pedal steel guitar in here, just expertly played. It's obvious with these two songs in particular, she was becoming such a distinct presence that she was gonna splinter off and start Belly. It just was going to happen. It almost seemed like an inevitability at this point.
They
Say
did the Breeders
goodbyes.
first, though.
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
first
is
the Breeders, then
which
Belly.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, this Say Goodbye begins with some TV news audio excerpts and then kicks into gear with a good rocking number again. Dave on drums, it's just superb. It shows where this shows where the Throwing Muses were going to go, I think, into a much harder rock vein. Especially after Tanya's departure, but it starts here. And this is one of their harder rocking songs. It's got an edge to it, and it would belong on albums like University or Limbo, I think. It's a really good song. Two Step is a great ballad closer. Some beautiful tones on Kristen's guitar. Really effective singing, I think. It's beautiful, it's sublime, and it's a touching ending to a great album. I think the song just builds throughout its runtime and ends with some really beautiful, just wonderful vocal harmonies between Kristen and Tanya. I love this song. I love this album. To me, there is not a bad track on this album. It's definitely 5 stars for me. I love it. It's it's my number 2 Throwing Muses album. I think it's wonderful.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I love me some Tanya Donnelly, but if I look at the evidence, I love Kristen Hirsch more.
Oh yeah,
I'm thinking
yeah,
maybe
I
you
think
guys
so.
like Tanya more.
No, no, no. I love my art pop, art rock, and it's Kristen's voice is so unique.
Yes.
No, I think I don't know. No, I think I like Kristen. I prefer Kristen. And as a songwriter, I think I prefer Kristen over Tanya, but I really do like Tanya an awful lot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my number 2 is Limbo, their 7th album. It's from 1996. And it's a downright crime that the Muses didn't get more popular after their university album. And things continued downhill with their next album, Limbo, to the point where they hung it up for a good 6 or 7 years. But with little fanfare, I think they bowed out with a stunning masterpiece. Limbo just is incredible. The frank, raw emotion on this album continues to surprise, and the music perfectly fits the characters in these songs. Like University, they all sound quite different from one another, yet hang together nicely. I've got every one of these songs at 5 stars. But the album gets especially good in the second half from Tar Kissers to Shark. Shark is a powerful closer dealing with addiction and desperate people. Some of these songs are sexy in a twisted way, while others are more straightforward emotionally. Hirsch's lyrics are so much more relatable here than her earlier work, like House Tornado. The hidden track White Bikini Sand is a sweet, serene way to close out the album. Interestingly, cellist Martin McCarrick plays on Limbo, known for being a member of Susie and the Banshees. Oh, here's Susie.
Yeah, and you
uh,
can hear Susie and the Banshees' influence on Throwing Muses, and even more so, I think on some of their earlier stuff. Sorry, go ahead. But I
yeah,
definitely hear her, and I definitely hear Susie's influence on their songs.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were an influence on them. Um, I don't know. I don't think Hirsch has ever been more expressive. And I actually had Limbo at number 1 for a while. It's truly excellent. Uh, by the way, I did see them on the Limbo tour. It
Yeah,
was
I
in a
did too.
little club. I think it was in Orange County, California, where I was living at the time. It was a real thrill to be so close to Kristen and David. And Bernard George is a great bass player, too. Unfortunately, they had a keyboard player who was very rudimentary and way too loud in the mix. That was unfortunate. But it wasn't enough to ruin the show, and he sat out on some of the songs. They were taking requests from the audience, and I foolishly yelled out, "Shark!" off the new album, not realizing they were going to play that song anyway. Uh, but Kristen Hirsch heard my voice call out, and I don't know why that sticks with me for some reason. Um, yeah, brilliant album.
Yeah. Do you know what? Again, it's another like, what's the status of this album on streaming services? It got messed up from. I went on Spotify to take a look, and it's like, it's not the track listing that I had on CD. Fortunately, I ripped a copy before I sent it to Adrian, so I had a high res copy of it, digital. But it's something's up with streaming on in their catalog, and Limbo is affected too, just like their self-titled debut. Can't figure out why. It's weird.
I don't know what the damn issue is.
Mhm.
There's
It's frustrating. The
it
original
could be
track listing you can stream off of YouTube if
it could be
for
tied
people
up in
watching this.
legalities. I think that's what it
Oh,
typically
I'm sure it
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, yeah, Limbo. That is my number two as well. This was the real surprise of the catalog. To be blunt, the awful album artwork, them breaking up after this essentially, and sort of the string of weaker albums before this point. I'll be honest, I kind of thought this was gonna suck, but it was really good. 4 stars, pretty close to 4.5. I did really enjoy this record. The band gets a lot heavier on here. I love what Patrick brought up before. This is like far and away their best produced record. I don't even think it's close. This album has such clarity. The guitars are like it's a much louder, a much more dynamic record. And I mean, it just sounds excellent. It I wish Real Ramona sounded like this because those songs are just so good. But anyways, Hirsch focuses on her songcraft a bit, and they push the bass right up front in the mix, and it is fantastic. We are really underselling just how great Bernard is. His grooves across the span are just so good. They're so infectious. This might be Hirsch's best record as like being the sole frontwoman. And not might be, it is. And songs such as Freeloader and Serene, I think, are outstanding. This album has a good amount of diversity to it as well. It's a very strong 4 stars. I think this one could really grow on me as I listen to it more. If only it was actually on streaming. What the fuck, Muses? I don't know. It's really good. Strong 4 stars. I really like it.
Yeah, go to YouTube if you want to hear the debut in its entirety, and then the proper order, and this album, Limbo. That's your only option. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. Neither one of these albums deserves that type of treatment.
No shit.
Um, okay, my number one beloved Throwing Muses album is, of course, University. I think this is the apex mountain for Throwing Muses. Kristen Hirsch, she she now has so tightly focused her songwriting that she can bring in just the best of all of her influences and then twist it into uh, a type of hard edge, grunge like, straightforward, sexually confident. She's like some of the, as Rich had mentioned earlier, the lyrics are sexually odd. But here I think they're pretty straightforward, starting with probably the greatest dick song ever written, Bright Yellow Gun. If you don't know what this song is about, if you can't figure it out from the title, I've just spoiled it for you. And it's again, Bright Yellow Gun and Counting Backwards, two of my favorite album openers from Throwing Muses. Man, kicks right into gear. This is the best rock single they ever created. It's a hell of a song. Sexually confident. Kristen is very alluring on this album. Oh boy, she's something else. She is on fire with her singing and her guitar work here. She has really coming into her own, and she is so tightly focused in her songs. She knows exactly where she's going. I'm just so impressed with damn near every song on this album. Just one of the greatest openers of any album, Throwing Muses or not. I love, love, love this song. It's fantastic. And the first 4 songs on this album are killer. Each one right in a row. Start, man, talk about that. Talk about those crunching chords, rocks really hard. When Kristen belts out "I'm all father's daughter," it's like she sold me hook, line, and sinker right there. I am all in with Kristen. She is just a force on this album. She is really something to behold. To behold, excuse me. I just so impressed with this is the first, I think this and Limbo are the power trio albums. They're just a concise, tight guitar, bass, drum group with some great songs. They rock real hard, and it's very appealing to me. I just this is peak Throwing Muses. Start is it's a really dark song about sexual obsession. It's some of the hardest material that the Muses would perform. I love it. You know, the lyrics all start at his knees and end in his dreams. It's just like, oh. I mean, it's just like it's something else entirely. This is really like Kristen as a force, just magnificent, marvelous. Hazing, hell of a groove, some really great rhythm guitar here. Just another great song. And when I heard Hazing, I'm like, I started to think, oh man, this album's going to be front loaded, but it still keeps on going. Shimmer, one of their best songs, I think. The hits just don't stop, and this song is one of my favorites on this album, and one of my favorites of the Muses. Really catchy. You got some nice crunchy chords in here. Great multi-track vocals from Kristen. It's surreal enough that it keeps it interesting and unique, but again, you can really hear Soundgarden influence. You can hear Nirvana influence in these songs. This is probably the peak of where grunge influenced Kristen, I think. Um, she absolutely shimmers on all horizons on this song. Just just a brilliant song. I love this song. Calm Down, Come Down is exactly what the title says. Things start to slow down here. It's not particularly strong, but I like it. It's just short at over a minute, so it's not impactful, but I think it's a nice interlude. Crabtown sort of continues in that vein, and so it's a slow down, especially from those first four bangers on the album. Um, Definitely not skippable, not one of my favorites, but I still like the song and I like listening to the song. I think it's appealing, and I like Kristen's observational lyrics on this song. No Way in Hell has got a really good shuffle beat. It goes on a little too long, and there's very little tempo or chord changes here. But in no way is it a bad song. I really enjoy it. Surf Cowboy, this is great. I think it's got enough hooks to be engaging. It delves into Kristen's aquatic fixations, but yet I think it's catchy. It's a nice little tune. It's not too long. Um, Another great song and a standout on this album. That's All You Wanted. Boy, this is some of Kristen's prettiest vocals, I think, and she's again multi-track, harmonizing with herself. She's finally figuring out what to do with Tanya's loss, right, and how to supplement her vocals in a way that's highly appealing and still brings in that Throwing Muses sound. Really, really a standout track. The melodies and the ringing guitar tones. It's a lovely, beautiful, sublime little song, but it's one of my favorite Throwing Muses song. Teller, great straight ahead rock song. Um, Kristen keeps the lyrics interesting and engaging enough to keep listening to this song. Again, not a bunch of tempo changes necessarily, but it's got a really good hard edge to it. Um, Gosh, University, the title track here, Adrian, that's got Kristen's baby son making an appearance on that song. I'm surprised she didn't like it. It's got some beautiful solo guitar from Kristen too. Just her again, she just loves her arpeggios, and they just feel beautiful tone on this. I don't know. I like the song. I like the title track. Not a standout necessarily, but it sounds beautiful. I really like the song. Snake Face, really good song. Great bass groove, slinky. It's a bottom feeder of a song. It sort of slithers along like it's the title to the song. It's got some retribution and revenge lyrics from Kristen. Again, she's so supremely confident on this album. She really is. She's a fully formed leader of this band, as if she wasn't before. But now her personality just dominates here, and her songwriting so spectacular. Flood. The interplay between the guitars and the drums, I think, really work well here. Again, all these water and aquatic themes keep coming up, and they're thick on this album. Again, multi-track vocals are amazing here. Great guitar work. Really like this song. And then Fever Few and is really grunge adjacent. You can definitely hear the Soundgarden in particular influence on this song. It's got this down tempo that builds to a crescendo to a crescendo towards the end. I don't think it's one of the greatest tracks on here, but I really like this song, and the build up towards the end makes it a very good closer to this album. Um, just overall, I think it's their strongest album. It's a power. It's the Throwing Muses as a power trio, as a hard rock outfit, as a tightly controlled, melody driven, just supremely confident performance from Kristen Hirsch. I can't. This is one of my favorite albums from any artist of any band. I just love University. I think it's a wonderful album.
Oh
That's where I
yeah,
am.
well
That's
said.
my number one.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's a
Thank you.
fantastic album. It's my number one, and it is their sixth album. It's from 1995. Um, you know what? I foolishly passed on this album when it came out because I didn't like the title, and when I heard the Bright Yellow Gun single, forgive me, I thought it was a cheap, conventional alt rock track. I love it now. It has a lot more going for it than I gave it credit for. Full of multiple rhythms and guitar lines, it builds with intensity into a streamlined kaleidoscope of heaven. And I had never
I like
heard.
that.
I know nothing about the Bright Yellow Gun being a penis. So I how did
Oh,
I miss?
there's so much sexual innuendo in this song. It's unbelievable.
Okay, I need to go back and look at it. Okay.
Yeah, and it's through this album too. Like Limbo, right? I think it's got the all of these sexual metaphors throughout it. I don't think I'm
Oh
reading
yeah,
into that.
yeah. There's a lot of sex going on for sure. I just never knew the Bright Yellow Gun was a penis. That's a surprise.
Absolutely.
Okay. Um but yeah, this album finds Hirsch at her melodic best. Loads of excellent songs. Her overdubbed background harmonies are at a peak here. Every song is distinctly different from the others, yet they all flow together beautifully. Start is a brilliant song.
Mm.
I just love the way Kristen lays her guts out on a platter for the feasting. Uh, her voice is so distinctive and raw, and the song is so sexy. The way she sings, I start at his knees and I'll end in his dreams. Hazing has a forceful, lurching rhythm with shifting dynamics and surprising bursts of energy. It is indeed about hazing, about enduring twisted forms of abuse and accepting victimization with a resigned nonchalance. Um, yeah, I could talk extensively about all these tracks. I will mention, I think Fever Few is an awesome closer. Um, I love the lines, you bring me water, you bring me dope. I don't like you,
Yeah,
but you're my only hope. And
yeah,
there's
yeah,
such a desperation in that song. It's
yeah.
incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think this is throwing Muses at their best. Um, my number one, easy 5 stars.
Great review. Really good review. Great insight into these songs, especially Fever Few, I think. Yeah. And that the way it just builds up into that crescendo is just something else entirely. It's a
Yeah.
great
And then they
closer.
have a fake out ending at the end too, which I think
Right.
sounds really good.
It does. I agree.
Yeah, it's all right. Anyways, my number one, the Real Ramona. It's not even close. I knew basically on the offset this was going to be my favorite, the only album I have any history with, and it's outstanding. I'm skipping entirely over 4.5, going straight to 5. Pretty much all of the 80s albums crammed into one brilliant alt rock record. You have the hard charging energy of the debut with the eclecticism of their other records. The writing and performances of both Christian and Tanya are even more refined. My only criticism here is that this record is kind of sequenced like shit. Going into Golden Thing after Graffiti and Not Too Soon after Hole in Her Head are just peculiar, to be honest. Despite that, I love sort of the ramshackle nature of the record, consistently jumping between different styles and tempos. It's just so cool. I love it a lot. And really the main thing to point out about this one is the rhythm section. They never get tighter. Dave and Bernard are just absolutely going crazy across here. The poppiness of Tanya, the more sort of Sonic Youthy, more sort of like out there experimental styles of Kristen. It's just an outstanding release. One of the greatest of the 90s, in my opinion. 5 stars, through Ramona. Fantastic.
I can't argue with you.
Yep.
Yep. Alrighty, let's kick into songs here.
Cool. We're doing top
Okay.
10 songs.
Yeah. All right. My top 10, starting from the bottom, from 10 to 1. I've got That's All You Wanted from University. Call Me, the opener to the debut. Just such a good song. Freeloader off of Limbo. What a great track. Shimmer from University. Love the song. Dizzy. Um, Hate My Way, again from the debut. Tar Kissers. Magnificent song. Not Too Soon. Tanya's Peak from Real Ramona. Bright Yellow Gun. Number 2 and number 1 is going to be Counting Backwards. I think both those two songs, some of the best openers for any album.
All right. That's a killer list. Okay. This was very hard for me to come up with these songs because
It
there's so
was.
so many excellent songs, and it's hard for me to say, well, this song deserves to be on the list and this doesn't. So anyway, here's what I came up with. Number 10, I've got Raise the Roses from the Doghouse cassette. Number 9, I've got Hate My Way from the debut. Number 8, I've got Counting Backwards from the Real Ramona. Number 7, I've got Rosetta Stone from Red Heaven. Number 6, I've got Pearl from Red Heaven. Number 5 is Carnival Wig from Red Heaven. Number 4 is Tar Kissers from Limbo. Um, and number 3 is Start from University. Number 2 is Hazing from University. And number 1 is Teller from University.
Well, gotta say, as much as I love Real Ramona, Counting Backwards wasn't even really considered for my songs list. And nothing from University made my top 10, so we will get into that. Just missing my top 10, I had a duology, Ellen West and Hook in Her Head from Real Ramona. But making the top 10, I have the second best Tanya Donley song from the Real Ramona being Not Too Soon. I have Giant from House Tornado next. Not my favorite song from Hunkpapa, I have Angel next up, followed by Graffiti by the Real Ramona. This one might come as a bit of a surprise. This song really caught me off guard whenever I was going back through it. I have Serene from Limbo making my list. Then I have Dirty Water, the lone representative from Red Heaven. Next up, I have Red Shoes from the Real Ramona. My favorite track from Limbo being Freeloader. Then the best track from the Real Ramona for me, which I think it got auto-corrected. Nope, being Honey Chain. And then my favorite Throwing Muses song really surprised me. It's I'm not even sure how to properly pronounce this. I'm gonna go with Bia from Hunkpapa.
B.
B.
B. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's B.
Like B. Arthur. It's
Yeah,
B.
that's a
Yeah.
fan favorite too.
I just work here, man.
Yes, that's a great song. Yeah.
But yeah, all
Yeah,
right.
I love your list, Adrienne. I just
Yeah.
damn, I have no
Great list.
confidence in mine.
No, everybody had a great list. A few
Yeah.
overlaps, but some unique picks, I think, and very individual picks. I like it.
Absolutely. Any closing thoughts, or has the 2 hour session that we've said about this group said enough?
My
I think
God.
so. I love the Throwing Muses. I hope it showed. I I think they're a wonderful band. I really like Kristen Hirsch. I like Kristen's solo catalogs too, or catalog too. I think Hips and Makers and Sky Motel, I think, are some of her standout solo albums. I think Adrian, I gave you Sky Motel, I think.
Sky Motel
Um,
and Hips and Markers, I believe.
yeah.
I kind of got both of those. I will say Sky Motel probably would have been my third or fourth if that would have been in the Muses catalog. So
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
mhm. That's the only one I've gotten
But
around to, though.
to anybody watching, her solo work is worth a listen, a dive.
Absolutely. She also has another band called 50-Foot Wave.
Mhm.
Right.
I think that's a heavier affair.
It is. And it's more rockabilly, I think. At least the song I heard from the group had a rockabilly tone to it.
I I think I heard it
Which
long
makes
ago,
sense.
but can't really comment.
Yeah.
So we gotta get into all these side projects. I
Yeah.
guess listen to Belly too.
Oh
I'm
God,
actually
yeah,
excited.
Belly Breeders.
Breeders, yeah.
Yeah. Well, alrighty. With that being said, that was way too long for a band we care about. With that being said, I hope that you all enjoyed this and you have a great time. Bye.